Has this ever happened to you? Like you're at a party or you're at a checkout counter at a line somewhere, and somehow your church comes up and you say, well, I'm a Unitarian Universalist, and they go, what's that? And you freeze. Sort of in panic, like, okay, like I'm always thinking, how much time do they have? Let's see, what should I say? Should I mention our Christian roots or that we're interfaith? But wait, that leaves out the atheists. How do I explain all of this? And by this time, they're like, okay, yeah. I mean, it's sort of easy, right? If you're Christian, you can say, well, we save souls. If you're Jewish, really doesn't need much of an explanation. People know. Buddhism, you might mention meditation and compassion. But when people ask about Unitarian Universalists, it doesn't really help to say, it's complicated. Sometimes I get carried away, right? I give a whole lecture on the church history, and then they're like, I see someone across the room that I'd like to talk to. Yeah, the truth is that Unitarian Universalism has always been a little hard to explain. I mean, even our name is a mouthful, Unitarian Universalist. I can always tell a new person because they're like, Universalist, yeah, don't worry, you're in good company. It's not exactly catchy, right? And it doesn't fit easily on a bumper sticker. We've been accused of being a religion where you can believe anything that you want. Not exactly true, like I said, not all behaviors that go with some beliefs are welcome. But you can kind of see how people get that impression. Some people say, well, you could believe in a doorknob. Well, okay, come on, use your brain. Maybe not that, right? But we don't have a list of things you're supposed to believe or a creed that you're supposed to follow. So I am going to try today to explain Unitarian Universalism, also known as UUism, because that's way more catchy. Let's see, so let me give you the long version first, okay, with a little humor. And then we'll get to the short versions. I'm going to give you some ideas of how you might actually say it. All right, so let's see here. So Unitarian Universalism grew out of two Christian denominations. They were very liberal denominations, okay? This is my history lecture, but you're not allowed to leave, okay? The first was Unitarianism, right, which emphasized the oneness of God, right, versus Trinitarian, right? So Catholics are Trinitarian, they believe in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. We believe that Jesus, or the Unitarians believe that Jesus was really, really great and special, but not co-equal with God. They used the Bible they were actually Bible thumpers in many ways. So let's see here. So they decided the idea was that then that all of us were children of God, not just Jesus, all right? And the theology had been around for about 2,000 years, but it wasn't made into a denomination until 1825 here in the United States. And the second denomination was Universalism, Unitarian Universalism, right? Okay, I know, pretty simple, straightforward. All right, that emphasized God's universal love. So back in the 19th century, this was everybody is saved, right? That is that God's love was so great that no one was sent to hell, which didn't exist. It was a theology actually that went back to the beginning of Christianity, but it wasn't made into an actual denomination until 1793. And the joke in the 19th century about these two radical faith traditions was the Universalists believe that God is too good to damn them, and the Unitarians believe they're too good to be damned. All right. Now, both the denominations were, like I said, totally radical for their day. I mean, today we sort of go, what's the big deal, right? But back then, that was huge. Now, one rejected, as I said, equating Jesus with God, and the other claimed that all were saved. Now, over time, they found out that they had a lot in common because they began to realize, as we became more and more globalized, that Unitarianism and Universalism had something in common, the unity of God and the love of God, right? And that those two things were the same. So, in 1961, they merged together and to form the oh-so-original name, Unitarian Universalists. Yeah, I'm like, come on. We couldn't come up with a more fun name? But anyway, all right. This is one of the reasons why if you see on our chalice that we always have two circles, they represent both of the two denominations coming together. Okay, well, we no longer primarily define ourselves as Christian. We hold on to those two radical affirmations that there is unity in diversity and that love is stronger than fear. So what do we believe today? Well, as I said, it sort of depends on who you ask. Some of us find inspiration still in Christianity. Some in Buddhism, some in humanism, paganism, Judaism, Hinduism, or none of the above. We are agnostics, theists, atheists, mystics, and seekers. And somehow it works. It's amazing, because at the heart of our faith is not a set of doctrines. It's something we call a covenant. Okay, that's a fancy religious word that simply means a promise. And no, we don't write it in blood, or you have to give your firstborn, or anything like that. It just says we're going to treat each other well, to walk together no matter what our differences are, with love and respect. Or to put it in more simple terms, we need not think alike to love alike. And this is David Francis, or Frank David, was a famous Unitarian, and this was one of his sayings. Okay, so to help us articulate this shared covenant, this promise that we're going to not think alike, but we can love alike, we have these things here. So these are what we call our shared values, okay? These are not creeds. They don't tell us what we have to believe. Instead, they're a way of saying what we do, generally speaking, have in common. They remind us of the deep commitment that ties us together, even with all of our differences. And if you notice, in the center of those 6 values, right, is one word: love. So we say we put love at the center. Now, of course, saying love at the center, isn't that sweet? Such a nice little sentiment, right? But it's also really vague. Like, what do we mean by that? So let me explain to you what we actually mean by that. Okay, so one, what do we mean by love? Well, first of all, love is our compass. We certainly try to look at this compass as much as we possibly can. You know, we don't have one sacred text or even a single creed telling us what to believe. Instead, we ask, what does love call us to do? And we can use this as individuals, and we can use this as a community. What does love call us to do? For us, love is more than a feeling. We don't mean romantic love or even just being kind. We mean the deep, active commitment for the well-being of others, particularly those who are the most vulnerable. It's also of the earth and of ourselves. The Catholics actually have a great word for this called agape love. It's an unconditional, selfless love that desires the well-being of others. It's what calls us to work for sustainability. It forms our social justice, but it also calls us to sit at hospital bedsides and bring meals when people need it. So love is also, for us, inclusive. It means that no one is left outside the circle of care. You don't have to believe in the same things as me. You don't have to live like me. You don't even have to like me, but I'm really nice. But you still belong, and you are still worthy of love. And love is what holds all of this diversity together. It's our binding agent in a way, right? Because we don't share all the same theology. Love is what keeps us in covenant with one another. Love is the spirit of this church. We say that every single Sunday. That's what we mean by this. It's like our, what do they call it, an agar, an oleo, something like binds us all together, right? It's what allows atheists and Christians and Buddhists and seekers to sit side by side in worship, singing the same hymn, each in their own way, and still be united. And here's the thing about love for us. It is demanding. Putting love at the center isn't just about being nice, right? It's about being accountable. Sometimes love means telling the truth even when it's hard. Sometimes it means being challenged by people who see the world differently, and sometimes it means getting uncomfortable for the sake of growth. I call these AFCOs another effing growth opportunity. Yeah, So let me tell you what I mean by accountable. I'm going to give you an example. Yesterday we had a dedication, a wonderful dedication of this building. We had people here. Thank you. But I made a big mistake. We thanked everyone here except for certain people that I should have thanked. And I would like to thank them now. That is Craig Sperry, who chaired our sanctuary committee. Please stand up. And also his team of the whole sanctuary committee. Everybody who was on the committee, stand up, please. Thank you. So this is also sometimes like we have to admit when we're wrong, right? So love is not just a nice sentiment for us, it's our organizing principle. Around the center, we gather our values, our interdependence, equity, transformation, pluralism, generosity, and justice. And each of us might emphasize those different values at different times, but love is always at the center of what we do, or at least what we try to do. And if someone asks you then, what is Unitarian Universalism? You could say, for example, it's a faith where we put love at the center of everything we do. And you know you're going to get a little bit of an old eye roll with that, right? It's still a little bit vague and a little corny. So let's go back to our earlier practical problem. How do you explain Unitarianism at a party without needing a whiteboard and a PowerPoint presentation? So I'm going to give you a few options up here. You can take pictures with your phones if you can have up there with it. Hold on a second, I'm going to look on my phone. All right, here's some options for you. It's a church that doesn't tell you what to believe, but helps you grow spiritually. Another way, it's a community where people of many different beliefs and identities come together to care for each other. Amen. Thank you. It's a place where you find inspiration, hope, and healing as you work for justice in the world. Yeah. These are all different ways that you could think of to describe who we are in one sentence. Honestly, I usually have a bunch of one-liners, depending on who I'm talking to, because sometimes it's very different. But this is the easiest way I've found. But it's not, so it's not easy being a Unitarian Universalist, right? We don't have easy answers. We don't even have an easy, elevator speech. We don't have prescriptions or requirements. And I remember one time I was in a new member class. People wanted to know, more about Unitarian Universalism, and I was telling them a lot of this stuff. And there was this lovely man there who'd grown up Catholic. He was there because he'd married a Buddhist, and he wanted a place where they were both welcome. And I remember him sort of after I gave my little speech or whatever, and he said, "So what am I supposed to believe? I just want to know what I'm supposed to do." And I was like, "Oh, honey." It's really a hard concept sometimes to understand that you're just welcome here as you are, right? Now, we do have pledge drives, and we ask people to give that because everybody sort of crowdsources everything here, but we ask you to give what you can. We're not asking you to give everything. We don't want it to hurt you or anything like that, but that's part of it being a community. If you've ever been a part of a church, you know that. Okay, but this brings me to part 2, which is something I've struggled to articulate for a long time. When I was in seminary, still very much a new UU, I pretty much became a UU and then went to seminary. I just knew it was like, oh, this is it. This is the greatest thing. All right, so I went to a party, and this woman actually knew what Unitarian Universalism is. And she plopped herself down next to me, and she says, "Okay, so I know you're very into social justice and everything, but here's what I want to know. Okay, you do a lot of justice work, but I can do that with my friends. I can go to a protest on my own. I can go to join Amnesty International. Why would I join a Unitarian Universalist church?" Well, yeah. I was sort of like, well, there's community. Yeah, but I have community with my friends. Okay. Yeah, I know. Okay. So I stammered out some sort of answers, and I really felt like I knew instinctively there was a good reason. Why would you join a Unitarian Universalist church when you can? You can join Amnesty International or whatever it is that you would like to do. I couldn't articulate it well, but I've learned over the last 20 years, and I've learned from all of you, what it means to belong to an intentional community. I would say this to her now. Yes, you can. Of course, do justice work without being part of a church. But what makes Unitarian Universalists unique is that it's not just that it works for justice. Of course, we try to do is that. A lot of people have their own thing. But it's about building a spiritual home. It's about creating a community where people care for one another in the ups and downs of life. It's about raising children in compassion and wonder. It's about practicing how to live in love, not just individually, but together. Because here's the thing that I believe most deeply. If you value diversity, then you value community. If you value diversity in all of its forms, you must value community, because it's only in an intentional community like a church that people of all kinds learn how to truly be with one another. A lot of people say you want a church of like-minded people. And I know what people mean when they say that. They want people who share similar values. But let's be honest, we don't all value the same thing in the same order or in the same way. We're not like-minded. Just go to a committee meeting and you will see all of the opinions that people have, right? What we're trying to do is something harder and holier. We are trying to love alike, to learn to be open, kind, and accepting and nurturing of our differences. And you cannot learn to love if you've never been challenged, if you only surround yourself with people who think just like you. Real love requires practice. It requires patience. It requires us to rub up against our differences, to make mistakes, to forgive, and to try again. And where else can you do to practice that? Seek it week after week, except in a community like this. And our world needs this practice right now, right? We're so polarized. So many people taking sides, and families are being torn apart. I know I certainly have a side, and I choose, but we've forgotten the gift of community. This is why so much, I think, is breaking down. We've forgotten the gift of community. It's basically that we need not think alike to love alike. That's why being part of a UU church, a congregation, matters. Not because it's easy, but because it's hard, because it stretches us, because it calls us to a deeper love, and that is holy work. You know, UUism is not a set of ideas, it's a lived practice of community. It's the experience of sitting next to someone in the pew you might vote differently from you, but who will bring you soup when you're sick. It's the experience of singing with someone who believes in God and someone who doesn't, and realizing that they both feel lifted up by the music. It's the experience of the child being taught by a teacher who sees their unique light, even if they don't share the same theology as you. This is what makes us different from joining a protest group or a book club. In this community, we're not just allies in a cause, we are companions on the soul's journey. We are companions on the soul's journey. So that's what I tell people. Why should I join a UU church? Because here we practice love. We practice it when it's easy. We practice when it's hard. We don't always succeed, but we try again and again and again. And the world needs communities like this, places where people can come together across differences and embody a love that is bigger than any one of us alone. That is Unitarian Universalism. That is who we are, and that's what we invite everyone to discover. So when someone asks you, what is Unitarian Universalism? You don't have to panic. You can smile. It's the community where we don't have to think alike to love alike. And why don't you join me on Sunday morning? See for yourself. If you have more questions, I'm going to be available after the church, but in the meantime, let us sing Come and Go With Me.
Rise and body your spirit as you feel comfortable.